When it comes to trying to get people to stop eating meat, most vegan and vegetarian activists try to focus on the pain that is caused towards animals. I mean, whether or not you're a meat eater, let's face it, the meat industry is horrific in its treatment of livestock. But the vegan-friendly movement here in Israel is trying to change tack when it comes to convincing people to forfeit their steak, and they've just launched a new campaign that millions of Israelis were treated to right in the middle of the Eurovision final. Take a look.
אתה יודע מה אתה רוצה להזמין?
יש פה משהו שנראית לי מעניינת. סליחה? מה זה סטייק סוף העולם?
שמח ששאלת. זאת המנה הכי מושקעת במסעדה. לא תאמין מה אנחנו עושים כדי לייצר אותה. לוקחים שטח של בערך 3 מגרשי כדורגל. משקים אותו ב3 מיליון ליטר מים. כדי לגדל עליו יותר מ8,000 קילו דגנים. הכל כדי להאכיל פרה אחת, כאילו אין רעב בעולם, רק בשביל סטייק סוף העולם שלך. נו, ראית איזה השקעה?
Powerful message there. Joining us now is Omri Paz, the founder and CEO of Vegan Friendly. So, I'm interested to know what kind of response you've actually gotten from people who have seen this. Was this effective?
Yeah, well, we got, first of all, an amazing response. I think the TV ad got to about 2 million views in just a couple of days since we aired it. We got responses from also celebrities, like Billie Eilish's mom, who reposted it on her Instagram. So I think we can divide it to two. Regarding the production, we got praised by having this amazing production. But if the goal was to change a dietary habit, I think this TV ad was a little bit less effective than our first one, Extra Fresh, just because it talked about more about like facts and didn't like hit the stomach with like emotion.
Right, which actually leads me to my next question. Before we break down the costs of the meat industry, because I actually do want to talk about the message that you guys were trying to tell people, what kind of information, what actually works when it comes to getting people to giving up meat? Because that is a very, very difficult thing to do. And there have been so many different types of methods to try to convince people that it's not worth it for them to eat meat.
Yeah, well, we find that the animal rights message always is the most effective. And regarding the environment, it could be really effective, but mostly with like businesses, governments, and not with the final, the end consumer, because they always like, it seems to them like this is something that will happen many years from now and a small impact, and like how can they impact this huge problem?
Right.
So regarding to making a dietary change, usually animal rights message is the most effective.
Well, and today the question always is who is driving the change? Is it actually that individual person, or is it the governments and the businesses who need to be changing policy to kind of force people down a certain path, right? But before we even get into that, I do want to talk about
it's a big question.
The cost of the meat industry. I mean, what are we talking about here? I want to know those numbers. How much did this industry cost?
I think last September the UN had a huge report talking about how climate change is a huge disaster and global warming, and almost everybody knows about this issue, but almost nobody knows about the fact that eating meat is one of the 2 top reasons for global warming. And to solve this problem, it's pretty simple. It's in front of us in our plates. So this is something that's huge. Also, it's a very destructive industry, because you need to waste lots of resources. You need to feed a cow 15 kilos of food to produce only 1 kilo of meat. Same thing with water. Same thing with land. So all over, it's just a very destructive industry.
Right. Now, one of the hardest things I think about leading a vegan lifestyle, or at least what people perceive it to be, is the cost. Because the kind of general understanding is that if you want to be vegetarian and avoid eating meat, it's going to probably cost you more. And this is what I'm talking, of course, when you're looking at the prices in supermarkets. And we actually saw right now a lot of people in the United States protesting against the fact that there's a surcharge on vegan milk in cafes, like Starbucks. What is the cost of leading a vegan lifestyle in comparison to, your average meat eater? Is there much of a difference?
Yeah, well, first of all, I agree that if you take a specific product and compare it to a vegan product, and let's say vegan milk and dairy milk, it might be more expensive. But if you look at as a total of the vegan diet, it's supposed to be cheaper or the same price. If you look at the poorest countries in the world, like Africa and Asia, most of their diet is comprised from plant-based, just because it's much cheaper to eat fruit, vegetables, legumes, grains than cheese, meat, fish, dairy, those products. And so as a whole, as a total, vegan diet is supposed to be even cheaper. And the more people consume a vegan diet, also that will help the prices to go down.
It's really interesting to kind of watch the work that you guys are doing. I do want to kind of come back around to that question about who ultimately needs to be taking action here at the end of the day. Is it the individual consumers, or is it our governments and our leaders and companies?
Yeah, well, because of the situation that we got to with the environmental aspect, and also with the fact that we're actually killing 150 billion animals every year just for our food, everybody needs to take action. But I think what happens a lot of times is that the consumers, they think that the government needs to do something, and the government says, well, if there isn't a demand for it, why should we do something? And each person, throws the blame to somebody else. And I think that what's happening is that the consumers don't want to create animal cruelty. They don't want to kill animals, but because they get the final product to their plate, they have a disconnect between what they're eating and what actually happens.
100%.
So, and you have also habits of people, which is really difficult to change.
Oh, 100%.
So it's lots of things like that happening, but obviously consumers, what we're asking vegan friendly is for people to act the way they believe. If they think that it's not fair to kill animals and torture them for their food, so why not for them not to eat it?
Well, we've got to wrap this up, but I definitely think people need to look